We are Labour members, a party set up for workers, a party that has always been internationalist in feel, and a party that is facing a grave threat, the biggest threat to our country.
Whether you voted to leave or to remain in the European Union, we're now heading towards a Brexit which nobody voted for.
Brexit will make my constituents and most of the country worse off.
Theresa May's Brexit deal will hit jobs and living standards.
And that means that communities up and down the country, and Labour communities in particular, will be hit the hardest from any kind of Brexit. This is why we need to let the people back into this process and to decide.
That's not to mention the harm that Brexit is going to do to the NHS, with doctors, nurses and midwives leaving in droves.
Migrant populations where I live have always been the backbone of our NHS, and without that backbone, the NHS will collapse.
They won't get 350 million a week for the NHS. In fact, we'll lose that in trade and in jobs.
We need more staff in the NHS, not less, and the government has failed to plan for what will happen.
Not just the economic hit in terms of less money for the NHS, but shortages of vital medicines.
The idea that we won't be able to get the right number of staff will mean that more people are left on trolleys in waiting rooms.
If you care about the NHS and the future of the NHS, you should support a people's vote.
Back in 2016, we didn't know all that we know now. Everyone has been on a bit of a learning curve since then.
It's nearly 3 years since the referendum. I think people deserve to have the final say.
We have much more information now, and actually the real betrayal was from a political class who allowed us to get to this point without proper risk assessment.
It is a Brexit that will deliver a Britain for Nigel Farage, Jacob Rees-Mogg and Boris Johnson.
There'll be no floor beneath which the Tories can't cut workers' rights, environmental protections, etc., guaranteed by the EU.
And we can't allow ourselves to become a race to the bottom, low wage, low skill economy.
This is a Brexit that must be resisted, and that is why I support the campaign for a people's vote.
And that's what we're here for. More democracy is never a bad thing, because many of us understand that this Tory Brexit is bad for the working people of this country, and we want to stop it.
Now is the time to mobilise, to organise, to be in persuasive gear.
We need to do this to safeguard jobs, to safeguard our economy, to safeguard our communities.
To speak to your members of Parliament and remind them why you joined this party.
Democracy does not stand still at one point in time, as the former Conservative Brexit Secretary himself said. If you can't change your mind, democracy is dead.
Whatever comes out of this process, I think it's absolutely essential that this doesn't get hijacked by MPs and it goes back to the people for the final say.
Politicians can't solve this. The only way out of this chaos that's been created is to go back to the people.
I think it's only right that the people have the final say.
We need to put whatever deal is on the table back to the people, so that the people have a final say.
But we now have to ask them if this is the kind of Brexit that they want, and give them the opportunity, if they so wish, to remain in the European Union.
In order to break the impasse, in order to break the deadlock which we have here in Parliament, we need to have a people's vote.
So the only way of resolving this crisis and ending this gridlock will be to give this decision back to the British people in a public vote.
Fight for our values. Fight for a people's vote.